está bienvenida en nombre de la Fundación y también en nombre de esta, ¿no? Esta alianza realmente inédita que tenemos entre las dos instituciones de dos países que están trabajando juntos para potenciar las industrias creativas acá en Argentina. Bueno, hoy tenemos la clase Impulsá Ventas e Ingresos a través del posicionamiento estratégico y la inteligencia artificial.
Hello, everybody. Good morning to you. Good afternoon from us here in the United Kingdom. It's great to see you all again after a month when I was last in Buenos Aires with Rob, and I'm really looking forward to providing this masterclass to you today with my colleague Paul. I think we have been introduced already from what I can gather. So what I would like to do is just start off with today's aims and what we're going to look at over the course of the next hour. So basically, we are going to split this down into two sections, and we're going to look first of all at something that most business founders have a lot of difficulty with, and that is the whole notion of selling and sales. How do you actually convince somebody to buy your product or your service? So that's going to take up the first part of the session. I'm then going to hand over to Paul, who's going to look at things from a more strategic perspective and how strategic sales plans and the marketing around those actually fit into your plan as you move forward. So from my perspective, we're going to look at something initially called empathy mapping, and I'm going to give you some tools around what that means. We're just going to have a brief refresh on the value proposition element of the business model canvas, which is the starting point for everything related to sales. We're going to look at some sales techniques and finally look at some ways that the AI, excuse me, can assist in the sales process moving forward. So what is empathy mapping? Well, you've got to first think about why people buy from you and your experience as individuals of being sold to. So most people don't like the sales process because they have experienced sales techniques themselves that have made them uncomfortable, and they don't want to feel or make somebody else feel as if they're being put under pressure. But effectively, what we have to do is to understand what the customer is feeling and how they need help to get their job of work done or get their problem solved. So effectively, what we are doing is decoding what the buyer is looking for. So as it mentions there, to sell effectively, we've got to move beyond demographics and into psychographics. Effectively, what that means is that we typically profile our customers by age, location, social class, all of the demographic elements that we have available to us. But what that doesn't get into is the real reason why people buy. What are the emotional reasons for people purchasing? And it could be down to something such as color, It could be down to something such as brand, aesthetic, anything along those lines. We need to observe behavior, and that is one of the key elements for us to understand what our customer is looking for. 9 times out of 10, they won't tell you what they are looking for, but by observing their behaviors and understanding their verbal commitments, we can actually see what their main areas of interest are. The hears and sees element, so influences from the market, peers, competitors, and so on. So what actually influences our customers to buy? And pains and gains, that's something you'll be well aware of from the from what David has covered previously. So what pains does the customer have? So what is really causing them problem that they want to overcome? And the gains, what extra in an ideal world would they like to be able to achieve? So there's a lot there when we break down what empathy mapping is, but there is a way of mapping this, as always, onto a canvas. And the empathy map is very simple. It looks at what somebody, and we've got an example here of somebody called Jamie, what he or she thinks and feels compared to what they say or do. Okay, so this is an example of buying a television. So something that all of us have done at some point in the past. So what he thinks. Why is this so hard? Why are there too many acronyms? Do people think I'm stupid because I don't understand the new technology? What's best for me? Not what's best for the person who is actually providing that television. That leads to them then feeling overwhelmed, maybe, fear, inadequate, anxious, might even be excited as well, because this is something that we're purchasing for a specific reason. And being all patriotic Argentinians, I'm sure that most of you are looking forward to the World Cup. So a television is something that is being advertised here in the UK. Yeah, absolutely. So on that side, we really got to get under the skin of people's emotions, how they are feeling, and put ourselves into that position so that we can empathize with them. On the other side, it's what they say and what they do. So they may say, I want something reliable. What is the best size? What do you think? So these are all elements that would lead somebody to think that they are interested in purchasing from you. Okay. These are all questions, and the more questions that a potential customer asks, the more that they are interested. And this is a common mistake that people make. They make the mistake that if people ask too many questions, or they have too many objections to purchasing something, then they aren't interested. And in fact, it is the other way around. The more objections you get, the more opportunity that you've got to sell. And it shows that somebody is really interested in something and seeing how that would fit into their world. And then what does Jamie do? Well, they check the website, list pros and cons. They may make small decisions, postpone the big ones. They may go and observe in stores, ask friends and whatever. So if we understand what they actually do as part of the buy-in process, then we can actually help them to make that decision. So this isn't about sales in terms of knocking on as many doors as you possibly can and cold calling people to try and get them to buy an insurance policy, for instance. This is about really understanding what your customer is about, empathizing with them, and trying to help them to actually make that decision moving forward. Okay, so if we look at how this then works with the value proposition canvas, which you will be aware of, we'll be looking at an example of that in a minute, just to refresh you. We've got our customer jobs. So those are the functional, social, and emotional tasks that the customer is trying to complete. Okay, so in the example of Jamie, the World Cup is just starting, and their TV doesn't have the highest quality of image. So they want something to be able to put in their living room so that they could enjoy the football. But is that actually what the job is that they want done? Or is that only the job they want done, is to have something to watch the football? No, they want perhaps to have a large screen so they can invite their friends over, have a few beers, provide that social atmosphere. So that's all part of the purchase as well. So that's understanding what they're actually getting from that purchase. What pains do they have? So these are the frustrations that are standing in the way of them getting that job done. So, for instance, their TV might be too small. It might not be 4K. The sound might not be great on it. And now we're starting to understand what points we can actually sell on. Not this is just a great television set, but it has 3D surround sound. It has 4K, 18 million colors, or however much it is. And then the gains. So the outcomes that in the real world, they would think to themselves, this is something extra. So that could be service in terms of, well, we can deliver this tomorrow and we can fit it in your house for you free of charge, or we could we provide you with a sound bar for half price or whatever. So all of these gains actually add up with the pains to overcome the job. But we need to understand what the customer wants from the first instance. So what we're looking for is this market fit. Okay, so what the fit is, so we have two different types of fit. We have a product fit and a market fit. Okay, so the product fit is when we actually understand what our customers' pains are, what the gains they want created, and know exactly what the job is that they want to be done. So once we understand that, and we can develop a product or a service that fits those needs, then we have what we call a product fit. Okay, we have a market fit when the customer base purchases or starts purchasing these products from you. And you get real traction then from the sales process, and the market will then self-propagate, and people will talk. They'll understand that you understand what their needs are, and so on, and it will create that market for you. The offerings to the market needs that we need to think about, okay, is the products and the services. So what the core features are. And many of you may have heard of FAB, the acronym FAB, which stands for features, advantages, and benefits. So when we're talking about selling, what we need to be doing is concentrating on those three areas. The features, in other words, what the product or service does. The benefits, which is what the benefit that you as a customer would get from purchasing this product or this service. And then the advantage, which is why somebody would want to come to you over a competitor. Okay, what makes you different? What is your unique selling proposition? So the products and the services form the main part of that. And then if we can actually build those pain relievers and gain creators into our sales pitch, then we're going to have all areas covered. Okay, so this you'll be aware of. This is the value proposition canvas. Just as a quick reminder, and I'm not going to go through all of this. You can obviously look at this in your own time and think about it from your own perspective. But on the left, we have the offering, the product or service offering, and on the right, we have the customer. So the product, the customer, I should say, has a job that they want to be done. They have pains that they are experiencing, and they have gains that they would like to experience. So from that side, when the green and the red match up to the green and the red on the other side, that is when we get our product fit. So on the other side, we understand what the gains are that the customer wants and the pains they want relieved, and we come up with a product or service. Okay, so as an example there, we have, I'm just trying to pick one, find steady. So this is a lower wage hourly paid worker parent in the US. One of the things that they want is to find a steady source of income. A pain that they currently have is that they don't have enough income and have unstable cash flow. What they'd like to do is advance their career and enhance their work-life balance. And the product that are actually being provided from there are a mobile app, a website, and access to job posting, which gives them the gain of improving prospects for promotion and improving prospects for a better paid job, and pain relievers are better able to foresee getting fired based on bad performance, and so on and so on. So basically what we have there is a customer and a product, and this product market fit. So consultative selling. What is consultative selling all about? Well, consultative selling is when you find a customer that has a specific problem, and you go in there initially to help them to understand what that problem is. Okay, so this focuses on stopping pitching generic features and starting to ask high impact questions. Okay, so again, if we go back to our empathy map and that purchasing of the television, this isn't about getting the clearest picture. This is about what your friends are actually going to think about. How many new friends potentially that you could get into your house because of the fact that you've got this this new all singing, all dancing television set. So SPIN is a framework that we use a lot in the business-to-business sales network, and it looks at 4 particular areas: the S, which stands for situation, the P, problem, I, implication, and N, which is the need or the payoff. Okay, so the situation, understanding what the customer's problem is, what impact that has on their day-to-day life or their business if it's a business-to-business customer. Understanding the problem. So again, if we look at it from a value proposition, we're understanding those structural pains. Where are the operational gaps? Where are the frustrations that are being experienced? The implication. Magnify the real financial and organizational cost of inaction. I can give you an example from my own experience. I used to sell computer systems and redundant computer systems. So this would be if there was a disaster, then another computer would take over immediately and service would be seamless. These computer systems used to go and sell for around about $3 to $4 million US, which is significant amount of money. However, when we were selling them into banks, and you realize the amount of money that a bank could potentially lose if their mobile app goes down, or if their ATM machines stop working for even a short amount of time, then that impact is measured in terms of what the actual real cost is. So, for instance, if a mobile app goes down for an hour, it can cost a bank anywhere up to $10 million. So what you're essentially saying is, for the cost of 20 minutes, you are insuring against that potential issue happening in the future. And then finally, the need and the payoff. So guide the client to visualize the true value of your solution. So it's about the service that you're actually providing, that your mobile apps don't go down, or if there's an issue somewhere else within the business, then you are not going to experience those problems. Okay, some more that I just want to run through quickly. The challenger sale. So this is where we are actually challenging the customer's way of thinking. And what I mean by that is that they may have a preconceived idea about what your product or service is actually providing, and you are challenging that assumption. The Sandler system, which prioritizes establishing a mutual commitment, okay, through, as it says there, clear upfront contracts. Okay, now that is used a lot in the retail industry, in particular if we go somewhere, a hair salon, for instance. Not that Paul or I need a hair salon by any stretch, but that if you go into a hair salon and you say, can you cut my hair? And they will say, yes, I will get you booked in for next week. That booking process forms part of that contract. So there's an assumption there that you are going to want the services that they are providing, and that you can book them in, and they are actually forming part of that contract. And then finally, solution selling. So really understanding what the customer's needs are completely, So going back to a TV, it might be that they need a microwave oven as well, and some other materials for their house. And can you actually put all that together, come up with a solution sale, and then provide better return on those investments and outcomes? So digital sales stack. So what sort of tools are out there? And AI fits very much into into this process. Back when I was starting to sell 25, 30 years ago, we didn't have any of this. It was all based on the relationship and the relationship that you could build with somebody within an organization or with a customer directly. Now these tools are there to actually help you to manage that process more effectively. And with AI coming into the back of these as well, then that really is something that has a massive impact. So CRM, for those of you who don't know what CRM means, it means customer relationship modeling. Okay, and a CRM system is basically a database that holds information about your customers. There's a lot that are available out there: HubSpot, Salesforce, etc. And what they do is really provide you with a place where you can understand all of these impacts, all of these challenges that people have, the amount that they buy, when they buy, and so on. What AI does with the CRM is, from the very, very small element down to things like understanding when your client's birthday is and automatically sending them a birthday card or a birthday email with a birthday discount for your product or service, all the way through to understanding the challenges that your whole customer base is facing, and seeing if there are similarities between customers, between markets, between geographies even. That then helps you to refine your sales pitch even more moving forward. Engagement, outreach engines like Apollo and Outreach. So once we've got these, or understand what our marketing strategy and our marketing promotion is, how do we get that information out to the relevant people where it's going to have the most impact? And then intelligence elements like Gong.io, Chorus, even the more standard GPTs like Claude and Gemini are starting to do this as well. Is understand the insights from your customers. So looking at their websites, looking at the demographics potentially of customers if it's a business to consumer, and look at some of the elements that they are buying, and getting all of that contextual data. And it's all about, as that image there shows, understanding the discovery of your customers, your new potential customers, what the value is that you're creating, what the gains are that you're creating, the pains that you're relieving, nurturing that relationship through AI, and then converting that relationship into sales moving forward. Okay, Paul, I think this is yours, isn't it?
No, still you. I'm coming up with the strategy bit in a couple of slides.
Right, okay, yeah, the strategy goes moving forward. So, yeah, so what we're talking about with this, and from an AI perspective, in terms of where AI fits into this process. It is all about augmenting the human representative. Okay, so people buy off people, they don't buy off AI. So if you think that you can set up an AI process to actually manage and develop sales moving forward, we aren't there yet. Okay, people buy off people, people buy off their friends predominantly. So it's about AI is about in this context is about understanding and helping you to develop that that relationship moving forward. And there are some elements there that we can look at. So predictive analytics, which I mentioned previously, hyper personalization in terms of things like the birthday cards, but also are there anything that you could do? So for instance, if you produce something only in red and you understand how many of your customers like the color red, you can personalize marketing to go out to them specifically based on that area, and sales ops automation as well. So CRM administration, looking at tidying things up, for instance, if somebody's moved a premises, for instance, then CRM can be updated by AI. The whole process of dealing with orders, providing quotes, dispatch notes, all that sort of stuff can be handled by AI moving forward.
Yeah, just kind of probably quite a useful. If you go back onto the previous slide, Dave.
Yep.
Because it's quite a nice bridge then, I guess, between what Dave has been chatting about and what I want to introduce for the next part of today's session, is thinking a little bit around. So you've got those techniques, you've got those areas that Dave has been talking about, and AI is an interesting way in which technology tools are an opportunity to build on and to support and to drive the way in which we're looking to improve and develop our business. Obviously, we're focusing on sales today. We've looked at other areas in previous sessions. So that the role of technology is very much that underpinning thread that is a big part of how any organization, small, medium, large, is looking to work. But I think what's useful to maybe pause a second to have a little think about, when particularly the way AI is informing and shaping what we're looking to do, there are a couple of things which are probably useful just to think about from your own perspective in terms of your businesses, and how what we're introducing over the bootcamp might be ways of building and enhancing what you do. But also there might be an area or an element of kind of concern or sort of worry about, how can I be doing this, and do I have the abilities and the skills in order to set that up? So a useful way to start with how we're thinking about AI and sales is just a way in which this can work, is to think about the tool that's being used. And for me, when I'm sort of working with companies, when I'm teaching AI areas in my postgrad modules, one of the things I always come back to is that artificial intelligence is a digital medium. Digital mediums are a tool. Okay, there are ways to help us think about how we can improve or enable what we're trying to do in a more effective and a more sort of seamless way. The thing which has been really fascinating, and in some ways has been maybe faster than a lot of organizations have really felt comfortable catching up with, is the degree to which that tool is changing the dynamic and the landscape of what we do, not just enabling and supporting what we do. So a starting point here, and sales may be one of the areas that you think about in terms of your own business, and where some of these things start to offer opportunities and offer real ways of thinking, is to break up what you're looking to do into two areas. So the first one is to automate. So as Dave was just mentioning, with things like sales ops and CRM systems, then you're using technology to do mundane, repetitive tasks that are taking up your time. Again, we'll have touched on that and looked at that in previous sessions. And certainly for many organizations, the real advantage of artificial intelligence at the moment is to take away those repetitive tasks and to speed up and enable those repetitive tasks to be much more effective, much more accurate, and much more timely. And that may not sound like a huge change. It might sound like, well, okay, we're just using technology to do stuff that we normally do. But certainly for yourselves, and I had a really interesting and really fascinating conversation with the Menti company yesterday, and it was really nice to have a bit more of a kind of one-to-one opportunity to talk through and think about how these sort of elements are real for yourselves. But what you've also got to consider when you're looking at your companies and your activities is, where should you be focusing your energy? So are there automated tasks? Are there things that you can be using AI to be doing, which are then going to free up space to do things which are going to be more valuable for you? So sales is an area that you can look at. Pretty much a number of the elements on the business model canvas that we've been introducing or been talking through are ways to frame the things that you need to be doing in your company, and are there opportunities where you can use technology to free up space. So it's not just doing things better and more accurately, there's also a real value in freeing up energy and time to then think about things which you can be using your skills, using your knowledge, using your understanding. And that could be maybe stage one. So the first step for bringing these technologies into your organization is, sort of stages of progression, stages of learning, stages of realizing what can be effective for you. And that automation bit is quite a nice way of doing things. So quite a number of companies I work with, friends working in organizations, use their AI for very simple things like putting together sort of marketing ideas, putting together brochures, putting together materials, which you can then work on, you can edit, and you can develop. And that can be quite a nice way of easing your way into the technology if this isn't something that you're readily using across your organization. And then we come to the next bit, which is a bit more developed, and this is where certainly AI is accelerating for a number of organizations, particularly larger scale businesses. And this is the idea of augmentation. This is where AI is enabling and supporting you in what you do. And this is, and particularly I think in some of the areas that Dave has just been talking around in sales, this might be something that you're thinking or hopefully using this boot camp to lead you towards, and to give you more understanding and more confidence about the way in which you can use tools such as AI to inform and support what you need to be doing and how you need to be working. But that only really works if you step back and then think about, what am I looking to achieve and use these tools for, and where would they complement or replicate things that I'm already doing and can do things a little bit more effectively. So to kind of tie some of this a little bit, I want to take a step back. So can you move on to the next slide, Dave? My glamorous assistant. I did like the photo earlier. I'm gonna save that mugshot that you had. That's one of your best ones.
Touched up by AI, Paul.
So there are two slides. So I just want to talk around, and we touched a little bit on some of this last week when we did the pricing workshop. But I think it's useful to kind of reinforce, and particularly where we are now through the boot camp, I think it's really helpful, hopefully, to reflect on things that we've been asking you to think about, areas that you've been working on, particularly around aspects of the business model canvas, talks and masterclass and tutorial stuff that we've done over the last sort of month or so. So when we look at, I said my area is strategy. I'm really interested in strategic thinking and the way in which that helps to shape and define what we do. And the reason why I want to come back to this to finish off today, before we have a bit of space for some questions and answers, is to essentially remind you to come back to core principles and core ideas. So one of the things that David mentioned a little bit earlier in the talk was the idea of the value proposition. So when you're looking in that sales process, whether it's business to consumer, whether it's business to business, you are effectively selling something of value to somebody else. And inevitably in that sales experience, in that sales relationship, that idea of value can easily get diluted or may not be necessarily front and center of your thinking. For me, from a strategic perspective, I come back to the core principles of the business. So for a strategy, we tend to talk about generic strategies. There are fundamental starting points that organizations come from. And I use these a lot when I work with companies, not necessarily in a kind of day-to-day operational way, but I tend to use this as a sense check. And so one of the things I often ask companies is to think about, what is your core purpose? Why do you exist? What is your basis? And the idea of differentiation and cost focused are sort of the two strands that emerged around sort of strategic thinking. And even though they can be quite blunt, I think they're still quite helpful to come back to and to consider. If nothing else, they just reconfirm what type of business, what type of product service are we coming from, and what does that then inform in terms of our sales and our pricing. And last week's session was really interesting in chatting around that idea of pricing and things that inform or can maybe make us feel hesitant about pricing and truly valuing what it is that we do. So those cost and differentiations are our starting points. You could jump on to the next slide, Dave. For the companies and for yourselves, we're really looking from a differentiation perspective. So what you do, what you offer is distinct and different in some way to others around you. Okay, so we're not looking at a business model which is about huge volume and low price, low cost, so very low margins where we're making our money on the volume of sales. Okay, we talked about last week with the pricing, understanding that margin, understanding where our margin for profit is and how realistic or where we can start to really work with that comes back down to elements of differentiation. So the reason I wanted to bring this in today and kind of lead into what we'll talk a little bit about as a kind of wraparound session next week in terms of the workshop was to really remind to come back to those basic principles that are informing our business. Because differentiation works for me in a very, very simple way. Does my product and service resonate with somebody? So what I'm offering and what I'm providing to my consumers, whether that's individuals or whether it's business to business, is that something which is going to be attractive and is going to be desired by those customers? Because again, as David was talking about with those sales elements, if there isn't really a clear sense of what it is we're offering, why what we're offering is distinct, then it makes that sales process a lot harder to kind of work through. So being very clear about what is distinctive and what can differentiate your product and service is a good way to just clarify the way in which you're then starting and understanding that value proposition. Okay, one of the things I introduced last week, which I just wanted to kind of touch on again a little bit today, was that idea of critical success factors. And interestingly, one of the things that sales is a critical thing for your business, but it's also useful to think about what that actually looks like and how that can be enabled and how it can be realized. And in order then to support that aspect of differentiation, what we're looking at there is what are the things you do that really enable and make that differentiation work. And there's a few things that I was thinking about that have come through some of the conversations and some of the information that I've been working through as part of this boot camp. An obvious one for many of you is design. So what is distinctive in a lot of products and services is the way you make what you make, or the service that you're offering. And that design element is a really important aspect of what it is about your particular product, which is then going to resonate, which is going to be attractive. I think last week was really interesting, chatting with, there's some really good contributions around the way in which that pricing is then reflected in the design, and the way in which you're thinking about how does my product stand out, what is valuable about my product. Okay, I mentioned last week my wife's an artist, and I was chatting to her. She was very pleased that I was using her as an example in the workshop last week, so she was thrilled that she's now been sort of used and presented to an Argentinian audience. But one of the things about my wife Fran's work is what she paints and what she presents is inevitably going to be distinctive and different to somebody else. Because even though you might paint, or you might have a similar approach, you might do landscapes, you might do portraits, you might do seascapes, whatever they might be, what really captures people from an artist perspective is what stands out, and what really then jumps out at the viewer, at the audience. And again, sometimes Fran has found or has lost that clarity of what she's producing and what she's painting. So understandably, the work she does sometimes then feels less alive. It doesn't quite have the energy that her really good work does. Funnily enough, that then doesn't come across to the audience. So the kind of strength of what she works on is very much her design, her vision, her way of presenting and putting things onto canvas. So for many of you, underpinning that sales process is the real strength and the quality and the distinctiveness of your design. And how do you then build that into the way in which you're using those channels and those different approaches that Dave was chatting about in the first part of the session? Again, kind of tied into that for the type of businesses that we are in this group is the quality of the materials. So again, essentially what we're building here are the elements of what distinguishes us and differentiates us in a meaningful way, which is then something that we can use as that sort of sales element. And the one that was really interesting last week, which I was really interested and keen to kind of talk around and build on a little bit more, is the personal story. And that value proposition, particularly for smaller entrepreneur businesses and very much design-based businesses, is often really encompassed or encapsulated by the story. So you as a creative, you as a business, have a number of different elements that come together, which is then the content, if you like, that you're using in the sales channels that Dave was talking through. And the nice thing about linking those together and coming back to those critical success factors is that the more you're combining those, I would think that greater chance you've got of making that link with your customer, whether that's individual, whether that's business to business. And for some, the business to business bit may not have been something that you've necessarily thought about. So again, we talk about the channels to markets in the business canvas. It can be useful from a strategic perspective to just scope out what those different channels could look like, and then what would be the different sales, or would there be different sales approaches that you'd need to be thinking about. And also coming back to our success factors, being more comfortable and clear about how achievable those are. And again, certainly AI provides a really strong tool to help with a lot of that data analysis and that data gathering. CRM systems can be really effective ways of collating that data, and a lot of CRM providers now will do packages and do deals for small to medium-sized enterprises. So some of these licenses become more affordable, they become more likely to be realistic. However, a CRM system is simply a tool. So if you're looking to invest something into technology, again, come back to that core starting point. What is this looking to enable my business to do? How am I drawing this in to supporting what I'm aiming to do? But that personal story, I think, for many of you, is a nice way of actually bringing together a number of those differentiating factors that create who you are as a creative business. And then the mechanisms that we've been talking about today are ways in which you're looking then to get that narrative and that conversation starting. Again, it's not easy, obviously, and you've all got experience of the pains and the bruises of trying to do this. But that's coming back to that kind of more strategic frame of reference can hopefully provide a way of not sort of resetting, but just reminding what is the core area, what is the core aspect of me as a creative entrepreneur, and then how do I use that for the different options, the different opportunities that are available to me. And some of them will strike with some of you more than others. That's inevitably part of just being more distinct and having a number of different areas that you're covering within the businesses within this boot camp. And again, that critical success factor bit, I think in all of the different areas that we've looked at over the last sort of few weeks, think about how you're using that phrase as a bit of a frame of reference. So again, are these things I need to be focusing on? Are these the core foundations of my business? And then are there ways in which I can enhance them and enable them? And can I increasingly, and you should hopefully be able to use tools like AI as a way of either supporting and just making some of those things tick over more effectively, the automation bit, or can I use this technology to augment what I do in terms of how I then get my products and services out to the customers I want to be working with. So that kind of provides, I said, a range of different approaches or starting points around that sales process. Again, coming back to that kind of strategic foundation that I think for me, obviously I'm a strategy lecturer, so I would say it, but that strategic foundation is really the driver, the heart of who you are as a business. And the reason why I want to emphasize that is as you grow and develop and scale your business, it's really important to remember that core, because you do need to think as hopefully as all your businesses grow, thinking about how you then grow in a coherent and a relevant way for your business is not a given. Okay, it's very easy sometimes for companies to take opportunities, to take contracts, to take options, and then a little bit further down the road, you're a little bit less aware of who you are as a business. I think one of the strengths of you as a creative business is you've got a much stronger heart and a much clearer understanding of who you are. But that strategic focus is what you kind of use to reset or just to ground your business. And it'll change, it'll evolve as you grow and you develop, because as I've discovered with my wife's work, her art, her paintings is very different now than it was 20 years ago, because she's evolved and she's changed and she's developed. But it's really important, I think, as a driver of that sales, as David mentioned, and which we talked about with pricing last week, it's sometimes easy for a business to not have the confidence in itself to talk in a louder voice. Having a greater sense of yourself and the creative element at the heart of you gives you more voice, and it allows you then to have a much stronger conversation in that sales relationship, and hopefully a much more valuable pricing that gives you then that sort of margin that you can be working with.